break your arm, you go to the hospital, you get your arm fixed.
Right.
Like, you go through trauma. Sometimes, and most often, trauma, it's not by anyone's choice.
No.
What happened to me as a kid, I didn't pick any of that. It was all a consequence of someone else's behavior.
Yeah.
The fact that there's not a resource for everyone that goes through that, that's where I struggle. And like, how we have to do better. Like me, I have this whole tool belt of things, whether I do breathing or I take a step back and I think about, I have a quote that to just trust in the Lord with all my heart. Like, I can't control everything. Sometimes I have to just know and believe that it's going to be okay. And I can say these things in my head because I've sat and had people explain to me why it works and their automatic responses. Everybody should have that chance.
Mental health, is it a right? Some people think so. If you do, make sure that you put a comment below. But I have an awesome guest here today, Jen Hilderbrand, the president of the Hope Mental Health Foundation. I am Mitch Bates, your host, my co-host.
Lindsay Taylor with the Hope Institute.
We are super excited to bring you this episode of the Bridging Divides podcast. So with that, thank you for joining us, Jen.
I'm excited to be here. Always excited to talk about hope.
So Jen and I, we met via the Rotary Club, which we just finished the Run for Resilience last week, which was a great turnout, a couple hundred people.
Really good.
Oh yeah, and compared to last year, we ramped up the registrations and the money that was raised was just great.
Those races are hard to get off the ground.
Oh yeah,
Good job.
And so we're really looking forward to the next few to be able to really just keep it ramping up.
Yeah.
But you guys, oh my gosh, you guys do so much. So just let's jump into it.
Okay.
This is you. This is about you guys. So how did you get here? What do you guys do?
So I'll give you some background on me and on how Hope was created, because I think that the creation of Hope is really important. It was founded back in 2012 by a group of therapists that had clients that were in services or people that wanted to start therapy, and there just was this huge gap in who could afford it, or those that could afford it at one time and then they lost their insurance, or deductibles were too high, or co-pays were too high. And so these therapists realized there was a problem and created a nonprofit to try to raise money to help cover the costs of these clients. Well, do therapists have any time to run a nonprofit? No. So it sat really just dormant for a lot of years. They had a couple specialized grants that came in, but that was really about it. And then 2019, right before COVID started, they decided to bring in a public board. And that is the point where I was asked if I would come be a part of this nonprofit that was starting up and trying to get going. I had some fundraising experience, and that's kind of what I was brought in for. And on the backside of that, I was very passionate and pretty vocal about my journey through therapy and how it literally saved my life. And so we'll jump into that part of it for a second.
Yes, please. When you shared your story, it really touched my heart, just because there were a lot of parallels between what you had been through and my family.
It's tricky.
We've been dealing with trauma therapists and counselors and all this other stuff since we adopted my sisters, and just everything they went through, and it was crazy. It's just been an absolute.
I think that
nuts.
Mental health and the struggles, it looks so different to everyone. The thing that I hope that I don't forget to say in this, I'll say it right now and I'll say it again, is that as I've been a part of this, there really is so much hope and joy on the other side of therapy. And it's why I'm so passionate to try to make sure everybody has a chance to go and get those resources. But my parents got divorced when I was young. I was always the take care personality in my family. My parents fought like crazy. I was always in the middle of it. And I had younger sisters, and so I was always trying to manage everyone. My mom struggled with depression, low self-esteem. It was a battle from as long as I can possibly remember. And when they got divorced, that just ramped up. My dad moved a little bit away, and when we were at my dad's, we ate pretty normal and things were good, but when we were at my mom's, there was no food. The food we had weevils in it.
Oh gosh.
My sisters and I were alone a lot. My mom worked double jobs, but my mom's choice of boyfriends is what really got us. And so there was abuse that happened in my home. My mom was gone all day. I was trying to manage taking care and keeping my sisters safe. And it was just this never-ending cycle. We would go to my dad's and get a minute of safe, and then we'd come back to my mom's, which was kind of like hell, and try to survive. And so I lived in this fight or flight. I became extremely aggressive, and I was pretty mean.
Shocker.
And, yeah, shocker.
When you're like in
Shocker,
that all the
when you
time.
live in that fight or flight all the time, there was a level of fear. I think fear is my biggest, it will be my biggest battle my entire life. Because when you live scared of what's next, scared of what's going to happen to my siblings that I loved, scared of what was going to happen to me, all of those things, then just I lived on such a heightened anxiety and fear that is something. I have so many tools and I work through it on a daily basis. I can't imagine. I can feel what it was like to feel that back then, and now I just have this level of peace. But back then I lived in this, and so got older, decided, my stepdad beat up my mom, and I had just had it. It was the last time, couldn't do it anymore. At 17, graduated high school and moved out to Mesa with my grandparents. And it was the first stable, calm home I had ever lived in. My grandma cooked dinner every night. I put on a little bit of weight, started
like,
college.
what is this?
it was peace. And on the other side, battling guilt because I left my sisters behind.
Wow.
And I moved to try to save myself.
It's that survivor's guilt mentality.
Yep. And that's been a journey for me to try to work through that. I've had lots of conversations with my sisters, especially my youngest, because I did feel this abandonment and a responsibility that I should have done better to be able to keep them safe. But you're dealing with adults, and there's only so much a kid can do. And so when I left, started college, found my husband, got married, and then had my own children. And here is where I'm supposed to just now be this calm mom who takes care of her kids and loves them and doesn't lose her temper, when all I knew was screaming and yelling and panic. And I think back to like my son riding his tricycle down the street and me screaming bloody murder for him to get back on the sidewalk, panicked that something would happen to him. And I still have rituals where I go through, like, my windows have to be locked. I checked all my doors. When you live with stranger danger, that is a very real part of your life. And so trying to keep my kids safe, I had this extreme control, which a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and a husband, nobody wants to live with this
control
crazy
freak
lady that's running around.
But you had to
manage, because I was trying to manage. I didn't want anything bad to happen, and I didn't want anyone to get my family because I knew how badly that hurt. And so I was just trying to manage all of it. And it did not go well, especially because I married a very strong-willed husband. I was a strong-willed wife, and it was not working. And so I remember him one day in hardest words I'd ever heard, but the best thing, he told me, one, you're the most negative, you think everything's gonna go wrong, and he's like, you've gotta figure out who you are. Like, who are you? What do you want? And it was that moment where I thought, I've gotta start trying to figure out, who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? Where is peace? Am I always gonna be like this?
In survival mode.
Survival mode. And honestly, I was mean. Like, if I heard you were talking about me, I was super confrontational. I was not passive aggressive. I was aggressive.
Like, forget that passive crap.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get crap done.
I love, like, if I heard somebody had said, like, hey, Jen did this, I'm in the hallway at the school, like, hey, guess what? I heard you said this about
You
me.
went into fight mode. Fight mode was your way to survive.
And I liked it because it was what was familiar and comfortable.
Interesting.
I didn't know peace. And so trying to live in a neighborhood where it's just a bunch of moms taking care of their kids and everybody's fighting their own battles, I was fighting mine, and I was ready to fight everyone else's too.
Well, that's the thing about trauma, right? Is that it
100%.
echoes throughout your life.
Oh, yeah.
You know, especially in that impressionable time, which I'm sure you've seen a lot with dealing with teens, everybody that you treat, that it echoes throughout everything that you do, right? Like, we were talking to, he was a trauma therapist that was very, very successful, and one of the things that he had said about one of his patients is that they were really young, 5, 6, and they wouldn't open up about anything that they'd been through, but they had been through hell, like you said, just this awful, crazy stuff. And he's like, watch out for when they're 30. He's like, because he's like, I promise you, it will manifest itself.
Yep.
And that is about exactly when that it came to a head.
Really? Was it was the same for you?
It was in that 30 age range where
That is
it's
wild.
That younger 20s, like the behavior's not acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's not okay. Everybody's kind of settling into what they're going to be. And I lived in a pretty, I wasn't affluent, but I was in Seville. Like it's nicer homes, families, everybody's working. People already had jobs and college degrees, and I was a tornado. I remember one day, this girl, cute girl, they were selling door to door, and they came to my door, and I answered it, and she's like, hey, we're selling this, and I'm like, I am not interested. And she literally, by the end of the conversation, she goes, you're not from here. Where are you from? And I was like, I grew up in North Phoenix. And she's like, you are so aggressive compared to the people. Everybody's so nice. They're just buying stuff from me.
She straight up told you?
She totally called me out. Yeah, and she was like, I can tell you're not from here. And
Wow.
it not even represent of the city that I lived in. It was where I had come from.
Right.
And it was
That environment.
very familiar to her. She knew that there was something different about me. But it was in that time frame where I'm like, I need to get help. And to be honest, I have no idea what led me to that first counselor. It did take me a couple before I found the therapist that I clicked with, who called me out when I needed to be called out and said, no, that's not how this is going to go. You're going to do this. She gave me permission by vocalizing that it's okay to set boundaries.
Vital.
100%. Like you have this idea, and for me especially, that it's my blood. I take care of them at all costs. But there's relationships within that are so detrimental to me that as much as I want to provide and take care of my blood family, my mom, I cannot, because it's still like I have to really manage my relationship with my mom, because the more I get involved in her struggles, it pulls me down, and that fear comes back and that anger comes back, which then reflects in my family. And so after a couple years of therapy, my older kids laugh. I have 4.5 years between my two older and my two younger. And they always tell my younger ones, they're like, you did not get the same mom we had.
That is so funny. That is exactly. I've said
That
that.
was
You
my
remember?
situation too. We
Like,
have two older ones and two younger ones, and I say it myself. I'm like, I feel really bad. My younger ones are getting a different mom.
Isn't it amazing when
Yeah.
you start learning tools and letting things go? And I'm like, I'm really good at some things. Like, give me a crowd of 10,000 people. I'll get up and speak.
Yeah.
Like,
Heck
that is my jam. Ask me to decorate a room or like make a craft. I would rather pull my toenails off. But I used to think that I needed to be perfect at everything. And now I realize that that's not even how we're supposed to be. Everybody has their own struggles, and we all have our own gifts. And when we can let ourselves forgive ourselves for the things we're not good at, the things that happened in our past that weren't my fault, and even things that were my fault, that maybe were a product of circumstances, once I was able to let those go, it was the most freeing. And that's what I remember. It's just feeling, you hear people say that weights were lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. I'm lighter. I am happy. I am more resilient, and now able to go out and help other people. And I've always been, because I am a talker and I am someone who loves connection, I've always been very open with sharing my story and
Amazing.
why I believe that therapy is for everyone.
Oh, 100%. Are you kidding me?
Everyone. Every couple should go. Every youth should go. Everybody should go. Because as much as we think that it's okay to, go in the fields and work or pull up your bootstraps, I'm like, there's all these tools and all of these amazing, like you're in the world of resources.
Yeah.
These different therapies, I had a kid, major anxiety, who did neurofeedback, and she is thriving. And that's why I think everyone should get that chance. I'm like, these kids don't have to suffer. There is possibilities, and that's what Hope is doing. We literally come in and we just cover the cost of the therapy so that you can choose your own therapist. We don't have a set list of therapists. You pick who you want, and then as long as I have funding, as long as you show financial need, are able to go in, and then we pay the therapist directly. So you see who you want, the kids get the resources they need, the single moms, the adults. We really serve a lot of that family living paycheck to paycheck. The mom who makes a pretty good income, she doesn't qualify for access or
Yeah.
Medicaid.
Well, if you have 50 kids like me too,
Yeah.
it's like you can make 200 grand and you're still,
And
you
you're
know,
still, and
three
that-
quarters goes to food.
We take every ounce
Ridiculous.
of that into account when you apply for a sponsorship. You fill in all of your income, you fill in all of your bills, you write your story, and then I'm able to go in and say, hey, this family shows that they make a good income, but they don't have any money to put 3 kids in therapy,
Yep.
and we're able to go in and cover that cost.
Because how many of us are in survival mode, whether it's financially or it's emotionally or it's mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. Like, oh my gosh. And you've seen that as well, I'm assuming.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, well, first of all, just the need for therapy is so great.
So
And I really I want to go back for a minute in your story on how you're talking about the importance of what therapy did for your life. And I think sometimes when we're talking about mental health, people think of the struggle part of it, which, yeah, that's a huge part of it, right? But I think the hope and the resilience, like, that needs to be talked about as well. And your story is just a true testament to that you came from this and look at the hope that you've been able to get from that. And I think it's amazing that you have this foundation that's helping connect people to therapy, because it's life changing.
And it should not be.
Yeah.
Like, you break your arm, you go to the hospital, you get your arm fixed.
Right.
Like, you go through trauma. Sometimes, and most often, trauma, it's not by anyone's choice.
No.
What happened to me as a kid, I didn't pick any of that. It was all a consequence of someone else's behavior.
Yeah.
The fact that there's not a resource for everyone that goes through that's where I struggle. And like, how we have to do better. I was at my son just recently had surgery, so I was out of school doing his 504 accommodations, and I was talking to some of the administrators, and he was saying, like, I've got 8 kids, I cannot get them into therapists. And so we went down that road. He's like, there's a shortage of therapists in Arizona. I'm like, there is not a shortage of therapists in Arizona. What there is there's a shortage of therapists in Arizona that accept insurance or access. There is cash pay therapists that are so good and available, but you have to be able to afford them. And so it's that thing again where we are dividing who can pay. It's a luxury. Therapy's a luxury, and it should not be a luxury. It's not fair.
That's
And
exactly,
that is where hope is coming in, because I don't think that overcoming trauma or overcoming our struggles should be a luxury. We want to save the world. We want to change the world. We want less teen violence. We want better politicians. We want better everything. Let's let our community heal. Let's give them resources and tools to overcome what has happened to them or the struggles that they have. Some are born with brain pain. Let's give them the resources to get stable and to overcome and to have, like me, I have this whole tool belt of things, whether I do breathing or I take a step back and I think about, I have a quote that to just trust in the Lord with all my heart. Like, I can't control everything. Sometimes I have to just know and believe that it's going to be okay. And I can say these things in my head because I've sat and had people explain to me why it works and their automatic responses. Everybody should have that chance.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
Going back to the barriers, we see that same thing where, there's plenty of therapists that we can refer to, but finding ones that take access,
it's all
ones
about
that
the money,
it's huge. And there's,
money.
And so, we're short term in what we do here because we're just treating the suicidality piece. And so then we're referring to ongoing counseling, and we're struggling with finding places that don't have a long wait list too, right? Like, because the ones that do take access, it's hard to get into. So
I know, I want to help you. I hope that I get to the point someday where the funding, where, Hope Institute is funneling to help, like, hey, this family can't afford to pay for therapy. And we're saying, from Chandler Unified, got it covered, send us a therapist name, they onboard, we approve it, and they get started.
Well, it starts with us, right? And again, with us. I mean, that's why we put all this out there, so that we can say, okay, well, hey, here is the bridge. Right? I mean, that's bridging divides. That's the whole point of this podcast is to highlight people like yourself, organizations like Hope, to be able to say, hey, like, if you can't afford it, or if you want to help those that can't, then this is the way to do it.
Yeah. It's interesting. We just did a dollar campaign recently, and it's amazing to me the things that will go viral. I mean, you get these random videos that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. we did a dollar campaign. I'm like, okay, if we can just get this to get enough views and every person donates $1. So it had over 15,000 views. If every person would have given me $1, I would have had $15,000 to turn around and give back out. One thing with Hope that I will say all day long, and it is because I am a firm believer, we are transparent, transparent, transparent. I wish people asked more of the foundations they donate to. I wish they asked them, where is the money going?
Are you kidding me? Oh my
How
gosh.
much are you giving back? I wish that they questioned a little bit more. If you want to see my taxes, I will show you. You want to see what we're doing?
Right.
We are, our charity events cover our expenses for the year. Everything I bring in a donation is 100% turning around and going back out into the community. I'm like, I was at the grocery store yesterday and someone was sitting out front collecting money for teen violence. And I said, can you tell me what foundation this is going to? It's just going, I work for a company, we're just raising money for teen violence. I'm like, okay, again, can you tell me, where are you donating? Where is this going? What is it doing?
Yeah.
And that I think is important for people to start to understand or to start questioning. When you give to these nonprofits that are out there in the trenches, there's a lot of us. And there is a lot of really good ones. But it's sifting through to find that takes a little bit of effort. But those of us that are really impacting and making a difference and building that bridge, because there is a divide. There is a divide between who can afford it and who cannot. And I want this bridge to be so solid and so strong and so big that as we're funneling people through, they're crossing it and we're getting there. And I think that starts with donors asking more questions and paying attention and looking a little bit harder for places that are going to impact, not just now. Therapy's generational change. I am generational change.
Oh, yeah.
I have raised my kids completely different, who now will raise their kids completely different because of that therapist who took 2 years with me. I mean, I took a long time. I had a lot to unpack, and I still have a lot.
Don't
We're
we
all
always-
a work in progress.
I'm
I
a
mean,
work in progress.
it never changes.
One of the things I like to say is that we're all made from broken pieces, right? And it's our job as parents to put as many of those back together as we can and pass those down instead of the broken pieces we were
100%.
dealt, you know, and so that they can then go out and do more. And with everything facing our kids today, which we have talked at length about, we need to give them the most put together
Everything.
pieces, tools to be able to combat all of that they get from social media, from their friends, from it just
because they're
everywhere.
navigating things we didn't even have to deal with, right?
And it's just like, you know, sure, 50 years ago, you're like, okay, well, just put your boots on and go out in the field and work, and you
suck
can,
it up and
you know, work through your angst or whatever. It's like, no, that's not.
No, it's not. And trying to help kids, and like, I get on social media and sit and scroll, and I think, man, I haven't been traveling anywhere. I haven't done this. Look at how perfect their hair is, and look at her outfits. I forgot to get that outfit, and I don't look that put together. And I'm like, I'm a grown adult
comparison.
with a really good life. And if I can feel that, I can't even imagine what these young kids are feeling. And so on the other side, I'm compensating my own children with, I love you. You are valued. You can do anything you want to do. We're here to support you.
Yeah.
And on the side of that, you get these families where kids are going to get that. And then you get these other ones where, like me, they have to find that in themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I think therapy is for everyone. It's so parents are better parents. It's so kids who don't have the resources of a mom that is going to, my kids sometimes are like, could you love us a little bit less?
My kids,
She's gone the total opposite direction.
it's so funny. I'll tell my kids, I'm like, hey, guess what? And like, you love me. I know. You told me so much already. It's so funny. Just the roll my eyes. And I was like, and I will keep telling
I'm
you,
gonna tell you.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I just love it. I was like, I will hug and kiss you till you're 30 and beyond.
You have to, because
You know.
social media is telling them everything that's not. Where I'm asking my son, like, hey, social media today, like, are you okay? You know I still love you. You know that if you ever make a bad choice, we can come back from that. I need you to be honest. I need you to be telling me what's going on. And
You know,
it's hard for them.
One of the things that you said, which I really loved, kind of going back a little bit, is you talked about how everybody has that unique thing, right? Literally just in Sunday school, because I teach Sunday school as well, which I absolutely love. You talk about getting in front of people. That's where I shine. I love doing that. But we talked about spiritual gifts, right? It talks in the Bible about spiritual gifts and how all of us are born with some, right? And one of the things there was a commentary I referenced where he says that there are some gifts where some assembly is required. You know, like we have to work to get them.
Yes.
And we talk about how our struggles is that exercise that we, like some of the gifts that we have that are latent, kind of waiting to be unpacked. It's like you go through the forge of affliction, and then it's interesting how you talk about how it had manifested in that anger and aggression, but how have you seen that same attribute translate into a gift and a strength now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Good question. Yeah, and you say it like that, and it is a direct correlation. I think as much as I battle fear, I also have no fear. There is a confidence in me because I've been aggressive. I've confronted people. I should be scared probably of. I mean, I could go on some of the people that I've just walked up and talked to in the billion range, where I'm like, hey, I know you have money. Can I meet with you? Can I talk to you? It's things like that where I walk away and think, I can't believe I just did that. Like that same thing has now turned into this gift where I have the ability to approach and to be confident. And it is in a kinder, more gentler way. And it is with good intent and good purpose. But I was able to take something that was awful. I mean, I was awful. And I have turned it into something that is literally helping change lives, because my ability to be confident and to go forward and to somewhat be a little bit aggressive in raising money has given me the ability to propel Hope to where it is. And beautiful. I hope that it just continues to keep going forward.
So, you know, Jen, I saw you at your gala, and I was thinking that as you were telling your story, I'm like, you know what? She redirected that fighter mentality in her, and you've done so much good with it. And I've just seen it in the very brief interactions I've had with you, where I saw your love pouring out on that stage, and I saw your fight, the good fight, right? To get these people the help that they need, because it's changed your life. And I see that in you. You can just see that. And so, you know, when kids are misbehaving or they're, you know, strong-willed, and you're like, all right, one day they're going to do good with this if we can help them guide it in the right direction, right? We say that all the time.
That was me. I was
but you have found a way to guide that in such a positive direction. So that's so awesome. You're doing good things.
Huge nerd, right? Which you guys know, I've talked about that a lot. I love superheroes, love all that nerdy garbage, right? But one of the really cool things though about any superhero, okay, I'm going to nerd out here for a little bit, so just warning.
You will lose me, just so you know.
Viewer discretion advised. Every superhero, they have the thing that's unique to them.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? But when it starts out and it shows up, they're breaking off doors, they're, you know, doing all this stuff, they're running into walls, they're, you know, whatever strength it is that they have, whatever superpower it is that they have, it always takes practice and consistency and somebody there to tell them, hey, this is going to be your superpower.
Right.
And it takes the patience and the love of that person. We all have that superpower.
That's such a good analogy, actually.
Really
I thought you were going to lose me too in that, but that's your...
Like, if we're going down like whose superhero is what, I'm never going to...
No, it's okay. Because again, this is one of my... So the superpower I've developed, right? I'm like, yeah, a lot of times I can lose people, and I can go off, like, you know, and I can talk about the origins and history of all these other super people. But anyways, but we all have that.
Yeah.
But it is... Every one of us can say, why me? Why did this happen to me?
Right.
And I think why me is less important than what can I do with it now? Where do I go from here? You know, life's 90%. What happens to you, and it's the other way. 10% what happens to you, and 90% what you choose to do with it.
Yeah, I think there's two sides. One, I mean, I remember listening to a girl that was attacked on a trail, and now she runs self-defense classes, and she has this whole big empowerment. And I thought, man, that is so brave. I wish everyone had the ability, and I think sometimes it takes therapy, it takes a mentor, somebody to get into the place where we sit and we think, what is our superpower? What am I trying to develop? Am I a good friend? Am I super creative? Can I drive cars real fast? Am I ambitious? Like, what is my superpower? And then the resources to try to move that superpower forward. That's huge.
Right.
Because I think so many people, especially with social media coming into play, everyone just feels inadequate. That's what I feel like. I feel like we've lost hope, and it is turning into, in my opinion, anger. I see so much anger in the community. I've followed what's going on in the community. If you sit and you read the comments, and I'm going to call the parents out for a second. If we want our children to act better,
Right.
we have to act better. If we want them to be kind to
Mm-hmm.
other people, we have to be kind. If you are getting on social media and you're making comments and you're acting and you're yelling and you're being belligerent, you are setting the exact same stage. If you come out and you act like you are better than other people, you are teaching your children that they get to judge other people.
Yes.
And that's where we are losing. We are losing.
100%.
If these parents don't start realizing that our behavior is a direct impact on how our children are going to behave. And therapy mixed in, rather, it's parents, children, that's how we're going to change how this all plays out. Because if we want our community to be less angry, we need to be kinder, and we need to heal, and we need to start giving our kids the resources to believe in themselves, so that when somebody says to them, like, hey, you suck, they think, no, I don't. I don't.
Oh, you bring up that, wow, everything you just said there was so powerful. I think of what's the Martin Luther King quote of, hate cannot draw out darkness, only love can do that. Something like that. I might be butchering the quote, but it's something along those lines of like, yeah, we can't get rid of darkness with more hate. We have to put love into it and grace. And so what you're talking about, man, it's, we
love
need to
is all
lead
you
more.
need. Yeah. I have a song quote for everything. But.
There's a book that is written by, his name's Dr. Perry. He wrote it with Oprah. It's called What Happened to You. I don't know if either of you've read it. Oh my gosh.
Add it to my list.
It is life-changing. It changed my perspective because it's scientific behind a lot of it. It talks about the impact on the brain with trauma in youth. And as I read this book and I listened to it, and now I look at people, and when you see a kid that's acting out in class, or you see where we have gone wrong Queen Creek is struggling, and I look at it and I think, what happened to you? What is your story? Where did this go wrong? How can I help you? Rather, for me, my parents divorcing took that safe influence out of my house and brought in different men. What happened to me? My parents got divorced. That's what happened, and it went wrong. And did I really want to be mean? No, I didn't want to yell at people. I actually
Who wants to be unhappy?
People.
Yeah.
Who wants to be unhappy?
Who wants to go through pain?
Who wants
right?
to be miserable? But it was what happened to me, and I think even as society, instead of looking and judging, we can look at people and think, what happened to you? Like, what is your story? Why are you homeless on the street? Why did you choose
100%.
drugs?
Perspective,
Why are you
man.
acting out in class? Like, what is your story?
Yeah.
And if we view society like that, and we start trying to give resources to people so that what did happen to them gets to turn into a strength, and that mended, beautifully broken, where we're putting those pieces back together, and then they're then turning around and blessing the community. That's powerful.
100%. There is always a root to every behavior.
Always.
And if there's a lack of kindness, there's something underneath that.
Yeah.
100%.
My wife and I were talking about perspective and just how important that is. And we're talking about, man, if you could just have some perspective goggles that you could put on, right? Whether it's your kids, swinging from the chandelier or finger painting on the floor or whatever, to be able to see what that means, right? But then also in the community, if we could just put those on and gain perspective of where they're coming from.
Or
oh
put
my gosh.
ourselves in other people's shoes.
Yeah,
is what
but
you're talking
like
about too,
society's problems are cured through perspective.
100%.
If we can just put ourselves in their shoes and say, oh, okay, I understand.
Why are they angry? Why are they acting? Why are they bullying? Why
and then let's say, okay, now it's like so much more love that you gain towards that person, because you're like, oh my word.
Yeah.
Like if we know the way to go to provide that healing, then how can we not speak up? How can we not lend a hand to?
100%. I have my first grandbaby, so I just have a
Congrats.
lot of times.
That's so fun.
He is the most amazing thing, but he's happy and sweet and just wants to play and wants attention and love, and he's got good parents and a grandma that really loves him. But I think a lot of times, because I'm in this work and I see the struggles people are having, I think, what does he look like as a teenager? Is he kind?
I think that all the time.
Is he going to be a resource to the community? What does he look like? And it comes, and then I come back to, it's what happens in this young, what is going to shape and form him. We don't start looking to cause trauma. We don't start looking to hurt other people. We start as these young, innocent, who are looking for their basic needs provided and to be loved. And then it's that path. And
It's
sometimes, yes, with families that we don't choose our families. We don't choose as a young kid what our circumstances are. And then we get to adult, and man, we are so hard on each other. I mean, I even sat before we started and said, be careful I don't say anything that cancels me. Like, I worry so much that I'm going to do something because I'm just trying to help Hope. And being vocal about it, and somebody that thinks that, I think people come in and they're so critical, and I'm like, did I not sit right, or that's what we have to be worried about. Those are of us that are out there yelling from the rooftops, hey, be kinder, be gentler. This is how we're going to create change. I'm like, we are under the eye of scrutiny, and that's where I'm like, everybody just be kinder. Like, let's all try to see what good we're doing. Let's give people the benefit of the doubt, and let's give them some grace. On the things
that's
that they're
huge.
struggling with.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
that
gosh.
we can come together. Everybody's, I just feel like we live up here, and I've lived up there. I'm like, man, I can tell you down here,
It's
feels
way better.
Really good.
It's just take a chill pill.
So much better.
Oh, I could talk about this for hours. Like, you are preaching to the choir.
I know, we'll have to have you
all
on again.
important stuff. Yeah.
But we love what you're doing, which is again why we wanted to have
it's
you
amazing.
on. And if you guys are interested, we'll make sure that we have links to the Hope Mental Health Foundation.
If you're a donor and you have money to give, please send it my way.
We need it.
We have 2 big events. One of them is a 200 persons exclusive in my backyard.
Beautiful.
We hold every year, and then we have a big. It's called a ruck march, which in the military they carry those big weighted backpacks.
The rucksacks.
Yes. So it's a big ruck march, and that's to support our veterans and our first responders and their families.
Beautiful.
And so all of those things, being a part of any of it, whether you need help or whether you can come out and support us in our events, they're all huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a movement of change. I'm like, jump in, be part of it.
And it takes a village.
And it takes
No, 100%.
all of us.
No, we're not going to solve the issue alone. We're going to solve it together.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. And to you guys, look, you can get through it. I don't know how many times that I have told you guys that, but you can. I mean, Jen's story is just absolutely beautiful. You absolutely can. And not only that, but you can take the suffering that you have been through and you can unleash the superpowers that you have, right? Take those things you might have seen as weaknesses or horrible things and turn them into something beautiful. And I believe in you. We believe in you. We absolutely love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.